Imagine humans with skin as tough as crocodile hide or eyes so large they dominated our faces for seeing in perpetual twilight. Picture our ancestors never fully leaving the water, developing sleek, blubber-insulated bodies and webbed hands. It's even conceivable that under different pressures our species might have re-evolved tails for life in the trees or developed multiple stomachs to digest nothing but grass. Evolution is a powerful shaper, and had our ancient environment tilted in a different direction, so too would the human form. Number 8. The Ice Age. Endurers. What if the Ice Ages hadn't just been temporary chills, but a permanent shift to a brutally cold Earth? If our ancestors faced a planet where glaciers never retreated and biting winds were the norm, human evolution might have taken a frostier path. Picture a world not unlike the harshest Arctic environments of today, but sprawling across continents, forcing life to adapt or perish. Survival would hinge on one thing: retaining heat and finding sustenance in a frozen wasteland. Early on, individuals with even slightly better insulation would have had an edge. Perhaps those with a tendency to store more subcutaneous fat, creating a natural insulating layer, much like that seen in seals or whales, were more likely to survive the relentless cold. Over generations, this trait could have become pronounced, leading to humans with a significant layer of blubber protecting their core body temperature. Alongside this, a dense covering of body hair far beyond anything seen in modern humans could have re-emerged. Think not just a bit more fuzz, but a true coat of fur, thick and possibly with an underlayer for extra warmth, much like that of a muskox or a woolly mammoth. The very shape of the human body might have changed. To minimize heat loss, limbs could have become shorter and stockier, following a biological principle known as Allen's rule, which observes that mammals in colder climates tend to have shorter appendages. The torso itself might have become more rounded and compact, reducing the surface area exposed to the cold, similar to Bergman's rule. The face too would need protection. Nasal passages might have become larger and more complex internally, designed to warm frigid air before it reached the lungs, a feature hinted at in Neanderthals, who were also adapted to colder climates. Eyes might have been shielded by thicker eyelids or pronounced fatty deposits around the sockets to prevent freezing. Physiologically, metabolism could have shifted to burn more calories, generating internal heat, a process known as non-shivering thermogenesis, particularly in brown adipose tissue, or brown fat, which is specialized for heat production. Blood flow patterns might have altered to protect extremities from frostbite, perhaps with countercurrent heat exchange systems in the limbs, where outgoing warm arterial blood pre-warms returning cold venous blood. Diet would be almost exclusively meat and fat, as plant life would be scarce. This would require a digestive system adept at processing high-protein, high-fat diets, and perhaps even adaptations for synthesizing vitamins usually obtained from plants. Social structures could have become even tighter-knit, with extreme cooperation, needed for hunting large, cold-adapted prey and for mutual warmth in shared shelters. Knowledge of ice, snow, animal behavior, and survival techniques in frozen landscapes would be paramount. These ice-adapted humans would be masters of a frozen world, their bodies and behaviors sculpted by the relentless, unforgiving cold, looking perhaps more like stocky, fur-covered Arctic specialists than the humans we see today. Constant need for calories might mean smaller group sizes, or seasonal dispersal and congregation based on migrating animal herds. Number 7. The tree-dwelling humanoids. Our distant primate ancestors were arboreal, masters of the canopy. While we descended to walk the plains, what if environmental pressures had pushed us back into the trees? Imagine a world where the ground became too dangerous, perhaps due to persistent, highly efficient ground predators, or frequent flooding or even dense impassable undergrowth after a climatic shift. In such a scenario, a return to the trees might have been the most viable path for survival. The first shifts might have been subtle. Individuals with a slightly better grip or longer arms relative to their legs might have been more adept at navigating a three-dimensional forest environment. Over time, feet, which in humans are adapted for bipedal locomotion on flat ground, could have redeveloped grasping capabilities. The big toe might have become opposable again, much like in chimpanzees or orangutans, transforming our feet into another pair of hands. This would make locomotion through branches known as quadrupedal climbing, or even brachiation, arm swinging, more efficient and secure. Our arms would likely lengthen considerably, and our shoulder girdles would become more flexible and robust to support swinging and hanging. Hands would retain their dexterity but might develop tougher palms and longer, more curved fingers for a powerful hook-like grip. To navigate the complex vertical world of the forest canopy, a keen sense of balance and spatial awareness would be crucial. This might even lead to the re-emergence of a prehensile tail. While a significant evolutionary step backward for hominids, if the survival advantage was strong enough, genetic pathways for tail development, long silenced in our lineage, could theoretically be reactivated or re-evolved, providing an additional limb for balance and support. Diet would naturally shift to what the canopy provides: fruits, nuts, leaves, insects, bird eggs, and small arboreal animals. This might lead to changes in dentition perhaps, with stronger molars for processing tough plant matter or sharper canines if small prey became a significant food source. Our overall build might become lighter and more agile to move efficiently through branches that might not support a heavy terrestrial ape. Depth perception would be paramount, so forward-facing eyes would remain, but perhaps with enhanced ability to judge distances quickly. Socially, life in the trees could lead to smaller, more dispersed family groups, as large congregations might be difficult to support in terms of food resources in one area, or might make too much noise attracting arboreal predators. Communication might involve more calls and long-distance vocalizations, suited for a dense forest environment where visibility is often limited. Tool use might evolve differently, perhaps focusing on tools for extracting food from crevices or processing hard-shelled nuts. But the demand for complex ground-based tool industries would diminish. These humans would be a testament to adaptability, their bodies and lives resculpted by the vertical world of the forest. Number 6. The shadow stalkers of the night. Humans are primarily diurnal, active during the day. But what if a global event, like extreme and persistent daytime heat, or the rise of incredibly dangerous diurnal predators, forced our ancestors into the shadows, making the night the only safe time to be active? Such a shift would trigger a cascade of evolutionary changes, transforming us into creatures of the twilight and darkness. The most immediate and striking adaptations would involve our senses. Vision in low light would become paramount. Our pupils would need to dilate much wider to capture every available photon. The retina itself might change, developing a higher concentration of rod cells, which are sensitive to low light levels, at the expense of cone cells, which are responsible for color vision in bright light. This could mean a world perceived in shades of gray, but with much greater clarity in the dark. It's even possible that humans could develop a tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina found in many nocturnal animals like cats, which enhances night vision by giving light a second chance to strike the photoreceptors, often causing the eyes to appear to glow when light is shown on them. Our eyes might become physically larger, dominating our faces. Hearing and smell would also likely become far more acute. Ears might become larger, or develop more mobile pinnae, outer ears, to better locate the source of subtle sounds, the rustle of a small animal in the undergrowth, or the distant approach of a threat. The olfactory regions of the brain and the surface area of our nasal passages dedicated to scent receptors could expand, allowing us to navigate and find food using subtle scent trails, much like many nocturnal mammals do. Touch could also become more refined, perhaps with more sensitive fingertips, or even the development of vibrissae, whiskers, on the face or other parts of the body to sense nearby objects and air currents in total darkness. Our skin pigmentation would likely decrease over generations due to reduced exposure to sunlight, leading to paler complexions. This would also pose a challenge for vitamin D synthesis, which relies on sunlight, so dietary sources of vitamin D would become critical, or our physiology might adapt to synthesize it more efficiently from precursors or store it for longer periods. Our internal body clocks, the circadian rhythms, would completely invert, gearing our metabolism, hormone release, and alertness for nighttime activity and daytime rest. Behaviorally, hunting and foraging strategies would adapt to the nocturnal world. We might become ambush predators, relying on stealth and sudden attack, or meticulous foragers using our enhanced senses to find hidden food sources. Social interactions would occur in the dark, perhaps leading to a greater reliance on vocal communication with a wider range of tones or complexities, or even tactile communication. The fear of the dark, so common in modern humans, would be replaced by a comfort and familiarity with the shadows. These nocturnal humans would be masters of the night, their entire biology tuned to a world lit only by the moon and stars. Number 5. The armored defense force. Imagine a prehistoric world far more brutal than the one our ancestor navigated, one teeming with hyper-aggressive predators, or characterized by relentless, violent competition between early human groups. In such an environment, natural selection might favor physical defenses, leading to humans who were quite literally built for battle or to withstand attack. The first line of defense, our skin, could undergo significant changes. It might become much thicker and tougher, akin to leather. Over many generations, this could progress to the development of dermal ossicles, small bony plates embedded within the skin, creating a form of natural armor similar to that seen in armadillos or crocodiles. These plates might be more concentrated on the back, shoulders, and skull, areas most vulnerable to attack from above or behind. The skull itself could thicken, particularly the cranial vault, offering better protection for the brain. Brow ridges might become even more pronounced, forming bony shields over the eyes. Natural weaponry could also emerge or become more pronounced. While humans lost prominent canines early in their evolution, intense predatory pressure or conflict could reverse this trend, leading to larger, sharper canine teeth useful for biting and tearing in defense or offense. Fingernails and toenails made of keratin could become thicker, harder, and claw-like, useful for scratching or digging in for stability during a confrontation. Some bones, like the ulna in the forearm or the tibia in the shin, might become denser and more robust, less prone to fracture. Knuckles and the bones of the hand might even fuse or thicken, creating more powerful damage-resistant fists. Beyond passive armor, more active defensive or offensive traits could arise. Perhaps changes in muscle structure and skeletal leverage could allow for incredibly powerful punches or kicks. While venom is rare in mammals under extreme and specific selective pressures, it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility that glands could evolve to produce toxins delivered through bites or specialized spines, though this is a very complex evolutionary path. More plausibly, hormonal changes might lead to heightened aggression or quicker fight or flight responses. Pain tolerance could increase significantly. These adaptations would come with trade-offs. Increased body armor would mean increased weight and potentially reduced flexibility and speed, making escape a less viable option and favoring confrontation or standing one's ground. The energy cost of growing and maintaining such defenses would be high, requiring a rich diet. Childbirth might become more difficult if pelvic structures also became more robust or armored. Tool use might be affected if hands became more weapon-like and less suited for fine manipulation. Social structures might be heavily influenced by physical prowess, and conflict resolution might take on more physically intimidating forms. These armored humans would be walking fortresses, shaped by a world where only the toughest survive. Number 4. The grassland. Grazers. Our omnivorous diet has been a key to human success, allowing us to exploit a wide variety of food sources. But what if, due to dramatic and long-lasting climate change, the lush forests and varied food sources our ancestors relied on dwindled, replaced by vast arid grasslands, where the most abundant and reliable food source was tough, fibrous grasses and hardy vegetation? This could have steered human evolution down a path similar to that of herbivorous grazing animals. The most profound changes would occur in our digestive system. Grass is incredibly difficult to digest due to its high cellulose content. Humans lack the enzymes to break down cellulose effectively. To survive on such a diet, our digestive tract would need a major overhaul. We might evolve a multi-chambered stomach, similar to ruminants, like cows or sheep. This would allow for the fermentation of cellulose by symbiotic bacteria and protozoa housed in one of the stomach chambers like a rumen. This process breaks down the tough plant fibers and releases nutrients. Chewing cud, regurgitating partially digested food and re-chewing it could become a part of human digestive behavior. The entire digestive tract from the esophagus to the intestines would likely become much longer and more complex to maximize nutrient absorption from low-quality forage. Our dentition would also need to transform radically. Incisors might become broad and strong for clipping grasses, while molars would become very large, flat, and crowned with complex ridges of enamel, perfect for grinding tough plant material for hours each day. The jaw muscles, particularly the masseter muscles responsible for chewing, would become immensely powerful, leading to a broader face and more robust jawbones. Constant wear on teeth from gritty grasses might even lead to continuously growing molars, or at least teeth that were much more resistant to abrasion. The human physique might also adapt. Processing large volumes of low-nutrient food requires a large gut, which in turn means a larger, more barrel-chested torso. Limbs might become stockier to support this increased body mass. Hands, less needed for complex tool manipulation related to hunting or processing diverse foods, might become less dexterous, perhaps more suited for simple gathering or even for supporting weight during quadrupedal movement, if that became more efficient for grazing over vast areas, though bipedalism might be retained for vigilance. Our energy budget and metabolism would be different. Digesting cellulose is a slow process, and the energy yield per mouthful is low. This might lead to a slower metabolism or longer periods spent feeding each day, perhaps up to 12 to 16 hours, much like modern grazing animals. Social structures might change too. Large herds might form for protection against predators on the open plains, and social interactions might revolve around grazing patterns and water sources. Reliance on such a specific, low-nutrient diet could make these humans highly vulnerable to changes in grassland availability. They would be a specialized offshoot, their bodies intricately adapted to a life spent harvesting the endless seas of grass. Number 3. The cavern dwellers of the deep. Imagine a surface world rendered uninhabitable for generations, perhaps by a cataclysmic asteroid impact that filled the atmosphere with sun-blocking dust, a prolonged period of extreme radiation, or an ice age so severe that the surface became a frozen, barren desert. The only refuge for humanity might be deep underground, in extensive cave systems or self-dug tunnel networks. Such a profound shift to a subterranean existence would sculpt human evolution in equally profound and bizarre ways. The most obvious and dramatic changes would involve vision. In the perpetual darkness of deep caves, eyes would become useless. Over many generations, they might gradually degenerate, becoming smaller, less functional, and eventually perhaps covered by skin similar to cave fish or moles. The energy cost of developing and maintaining complex eyes would be saved, and the risk of eye injury in tight, dark spaces eliminated. This loss of sight would necessitate a dramatic enhancement of other senses. Touch would become hyper-acute. Skin receptors for pressure, vibration, and texture could become far more numerous and sensitive. Whiskers or vibrissae might evolve not just on the face, but potentially on other parts of the body, like arms and legs to detect nearby obstacles, air currents, and even the subtle movements of prey or other individuals, and total darkness. Hearing would also likely become exceptionally sharp, specialized for detecting the echoes of sounds. Echolalia, though perhaps rudimentary, using clicks or calls. The dripping of water, the scuttling of cave insects, or the approach of subterranean predators. Olfaction. The sense of smell would be critical for finding food, fungi, roots, cave-dwelling creatures, and for social communication through pheromones. The human form might adapt for navigating confined, uneven, and often vertical cave environments. Limbs could become shorter and more robust, with powerful muscles for climbing and crawling. Hands and feet might develop stronger grips with broader palms and soles, or even claws for digging or clinging to rock surfaces. Skin pigmentation would be lost entirely, resulting in pale, almost translucent skin. Hair might also be lost or become very sparse, as insulation would be less of an issue in the relatively stable temperatures of deep caves, and hair could snag or harbor parasites. Metabolism might slow down to conserve energy in an environment where food could be scarce and unpredictable. A diet of cave fungi, insects, crustaceans, fish, and perhaps even bacteria chemosynthesizing minerals from rocks would require a versatile digestive system. Social structures in confined dark environments might lead to smaller group sizes and a reliance on non-visual communication, such as vocalizations with a complex range of pitches and inflections or tactile signals. These subterranean humans would be pale, sightless beings perfectly attuned to navigating a three-dimensional labyrinth of rock and darkness, their world defined by sound, touch, and smell. Number 2. The Winged Skylords. This is perhaps one of the most fantastical yet intriguing evolutionary detours, humans taking to the skies. For this to happen, the selective pressures would need to be immense and unique. Imagine a world where ground-level resources were extremely scarce or dangerous to access, but high-altitude resources, like cliffside nests, fruits on otherwise inaccessible plateaus, or swarms of aerial insects, were abundant. Or perhaps a world with relentless, highly effective ground predators from which flight was the only reliable escape. The anatomical changes required for powered flight in a creature the size and basic structure of a human would be extreme. The most fundamental would be the transformation of arms into wings. This would mean the elongation of finger bones, like in bats, forming a framework for a skin membrane or patagium, or the development of feathers along the arms, like in birds, a much more complex evolutionary leap involving follicular structures. This would come at the cost of manipulative hands, a defining human trait which would dramatically alter tool use and interaction with the environment. To power these wings' massive pectoral chest, muscles would be needed anchored to a greatly enlarged sternum, possibly with a keel like that of birds, providing a large surface area for muscle attachment. The entire skeleton would need to become significantly lighter. Bones might become hollow and pneumatized, filled with air spaces connected to the respiratory system, similar to birds, reducing overall body weight without sacrificing too much strength. Overall body size would likely have to decrease significantly, as the physics of flight heavily penalizes larger creatures. The respiratory system would need to become far more efficient to meet the high metabolic demands of flight. A bird-like system of air sacs allowing for unidirectional airflow through the lungs and continuous oxygen uptake might evolve. Metabolism would be incredibly high, requiring a constant intake of energy-rich food. Feathers, if they evolved, would also provide insulation, crucial for maintaining body temperature during flight, especially at higher altitudes. Sensory adaptations would also be necessary. Vision would need to be exceptionally keen, with excellent depth perception for navigating in 3 dimensions and spotting food or landing sites from afar. A highly developed sense of balance, linked to the inner ear, would be critical. Legs and feet would likely become more bird-like, adapted for perching, grasping prey, or perhaps for a running takeoff. They might be relatively small and light to reduce drag. The social and behavioral implications would be vast. Nests or roosts might be built in high, inaccessible places. Migration over long distances could become common. The human brain, while large, might face constraints if overall body mass needed to be severely reduced for flight. The development of such drastically different beings would mean they were human in lineage only, their form and lifestyle utterly transformed by the demands of conquering the air. They would be creatures of the wind and sky, a testament to life's ability to find a way, however improbable. Number 1. The aquatic humanoid. Imagine if, instead of venturing onto the savanna, some early hominid populations became increasingly reliant on coastal or freshwater environments. Perhaps rising sea levels, or the abundance of marine food sources, or safety from land-based predators strongly phenibized a life spent in and around water. This could have set humanity on a path towards becoming semi-aquatic or even fully aquatic beings. Initial adaptations might have involved changes to hands and feet for better movement in water. Webbing between fingers and toes, a trait that occasionally appears as a minor human variation, could have become much more pronounced, creating paddle-like extremities for efficient swimming. Hairlessness, which is characteristic of humans compared to other primates, might have become even more complete to reduce drag in the water, similar to dolphins or whales. Instead of fur, a layer of subcutaneous blubber would likely develop for insulation in cooler waters, streamlining the body shape at the same time. The respiratory system would undergo significant modifications for prolonged submersion. Lung capacity could increase substantially. The mammalian diving reflex, which slows the heart rate and renotes blood flow to essential organs during a dive, would become highly developed. Nostrils might migrate higher on the face, perhaps even towards the top of the head like a whale's blowhole, allowing for breathing with minimal exposure above the surface. The larynx and pharynx might adapt to allow for better closure against water pressure, and perhaps even for underwater vocalizations. Eyes would need to adapt for clear vision both above and below water. The shape of the lens or cornea might change, or a nictitating membrane, a transparent third eyelid, like in crocodiles or seals, could evolve to protect the eyes underwater and improve underwater acuity. Ears would also need to adapt to hear underwater, perhaps with changes to the ear canal and eardrum, or even the development of bone conduction for hearing, as seen in cetaceans. Some theories even suggest the possibility of rudimentary echaka evolving if these humans hunted in murky waters. The skeletal structure might also change. Bones could become denser to counteract buoyancy for easier diving. Osteosclerosis, seen in manatees. Or the spine might become more flexible for powerful, undulating swimming motions. Limbs might shorten and become more flipper-like if the adaptation was towards fully aquatic life. Though for a semi-aquatic existence, functional limbs for some terrestrial movement might be retained. Diet would be primarily seafood, leading to teeth adapted for gripping slippery prey and perhaps for crushing shells. Socially, these aquatic humans might live in coastal pods or family groups, their lives dictated by tides, currents, and the migrations of marine life. Tool use would adapt to an aquatic environment, perhaps tools for prying shellfish, spearing fish, or processing marine carcasses. Their entire culture and worldview would be shaped by the ocean, a world vastly different from the terrestrial existence that defined our own evolutionary trajectory. They would be children of the water, sleek, skilled swimmers, and masters of the coastal realms.